Everyone knows about hits like Home Alone and Ghost. But what Hollywood doesn't like to remember is that the 90s had a whole other category of flops. Movies so ridiculous, you almost have to laugh at how badly they went wrong. 1990 was a year of big stars and massive budgets, where studios took huge risks that didn't just underperform, they collided with reality. Today we're looking at 14 of the most humiliating box office disasters from the start of the decade, including movies that lost more money than most people will make in a lifetime. We're diving into career-wrecking sequels that turned a beloved franchises into a punchline, another that nearly nuked a studio's movie division after a massive production meltdown, and a disaster featuring bizarre, behind-the-scenes chaos that critics are still trying to wrap their heads around. These movies prove that even legends and big budgets fail when faced with script chaos and mismatched tones. So grab some popcorn as we count down the biggest box office bombs of 1990. First up on the list is The Bonfire of the Vanities. This was supposed to be the cinematic event of the decade, adapting a generation-defining bestseller with a dream team of Tom Hanks, Bruce Willis, and Brian De Palma. The story follows a wealthy Wall Street master of the universe, whose life unravels after his mistress accidentally hits a young man with their car in the Bronx. It was intended to be a biting satire of 1980s greed, class warfare, and the media circus of New York City. However, the production crashed and burned due to a toxic mix of miscasting and a tone that was completely out of step with what audiences wanted. The receipts were devastating. The movie cost the studio $47 million and grossed roughly $15.6 million, failing to even recoup its initial budget. The aftershock was just as brutal. The movie earned multiple Razzie nominations and became the primary subject of the book The Devil's Candy. Next on the list is The Rookie. Warner Brothers Studio thought they had a bulletproof formula. Pair a living legend like Clint Eastwood with a white-hot Charlie Sheen. The plot centers on a grizzled, rule-breaking veteran detective who is forced to train a wealthy, by-the-book rookie while chasing down a ruthless German car theft ring. It was designed to be a high-stakes, buddy cop actioner filled with massive explosions and high-speed chases. But the film evaporated on arrival, thanks to a cliched script and the misfortune of opening against the year's hit movie, Home Alone. The receipts tell a grim story. Costing roughly $40 million, it only scraped together $21.6 million domestic. The aftershock was a rare bruise on Eastwood's directorial track record. At number 3, it's Air America. This project had summer blockbuster written all over it, banking on the massive charisma of Mel Gibson and a rising Robert Downey Jr. The film follows two pilots flying for a secret CIA-run airline during the Vietnam War, transporting everything from refugees to livestock and illegal opium. It attempted to blend dark comedy with high-flying aerial stunts in the Southeast Asian jungle. But the film stalled out in the hangar due to a mismatched tone that wavered between slapstick and political critique. The receipts were terrible. With a $35 million budget and a worldwide gross of just $32.9 million, it failed to recoup its costs, before we even consider how much they spent on marketing. The aftershock was a reminder that star power can't fix a script that feels out of step with expectations. Next up, it's the movie Havana. Universal Studios was trying to manufacture a modern-day Casablanca, reuniting Robert Redford with director Sidney Pollack. Redford stars as a professional gambler who travels to Cuba in 1958 to organize a high-stakes poker game, only to fall for a revolutionary's wife just as the country teeters on the edge of civil war. The movie focuses on their doomed romance against the backdrop of the collapsing Batista regime. However, the film nosedived into obscurity because audiences found the nearly 3-hour runtime self-indulgent. The movie cost roughly $40 million to produce. It grossed a mere $9 million. At number 5, we have Ghost Dad. This film was marketed as the ultimate family-friendly romp, reuniting TV star Bill Cosby with director Sidney Poitier. The story involves a workaholic widower who is killed in a taxi accident and returns as a ghost to ensure his children are financially secure before he fully crosses over. He must learn to navigate his spectral state, becoming invisible in the shadows, while trying to close a life-changing corporate deal. But the film misfired completely due to a bizarre, mismatched tone that shifted between goofy slapstick and morbid drama. The movie lost nearly $5 million, and that was just on the production costs. It doesn't include the marketing costs, which were substantial. Next on the list, it's loose cannons. On the surface, pairing Gene Hackman with Dan Aykroyd seemed like a safe bet for the buddy cop genre. The plot follows a veteran detective who is partnered with a brilliant but mentally unstable officer who adopts different pop culture personalities when he gets stressed. Together, they stumble onto a conspiracy involving a long-lost sex tape featuring a prominent German politician. But the movie withered at the box office due to a script that felt more uncomfortable than comedic. At number 7, it's Texasville. Expectations were sky high for this sequel to the Oscar-winning classic The Last Picture Show. Set 30 years after the original, the story catches up with the residents of Anarene, Texas, as they grapple with middle age, oil busts, and the town's centennial celebration. It focuses on the tangled relationships and midlife crises of the characters who were once small-town teenagers. But the film imploded under the weight of its own hype, struggling with a tone that failed to resonate with 1990 audiences. Next up on the list, it's The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. This was meticulously engineered to be Andrew Dice Clay's big arrival. Clay plays a rock and roll detective in Los Angeles who specializes in solving crimes within the music industry, dressed in 1950s greaser attire. The plot kicks off when he is hired to find a missing groupie, leading him into a web of murder and record label corruption. But the film flatlined as the public's appetite for Clay's act hit a wall. The receipts were a nightmare. With a $49 million budget, it stalled out at just $21.4 million. The aftershock was immediate and brutal, with the film winning 3 Razzie Awards for its horrific performance. At number 9, it's another box office hit sequel, Predator 2. The movie was directed by Stephen Hopkins, who assumed the Predator name was enough to carry a sequel without Arnold Schwarzenegger. The story moves the action to a heat wave-stricken Los Angeles in the near future, where a new trophy-hunting alien arrives to hunt drug lords and police officers during a violent turf war. Danny Glover plays the tough LAPD detective who realizes he's being hunted by something not of this world. But the film got lost in the urban jungle, leaning too hard into hyper-violence. The receipts are a sobering reminder of the sequel slump. On a $35 million budget, it only managed $30 million domestic. The aftershock was a decade-long deep freeze for the franchise. Next up, it's Quigley Down Under. This was supposed to prove Tom Selleck was a legitimate movie star. Selleck plays an American sharpshooter who travels to the Australian outback after answering an ad for a master long-distance marksman. Upon arrival, he discovers his employer wants him to hunt the local Aboriginal population, leading Quigley to turn his rifle against the villainous rancher instead. But the film stumbled in the ring because Westerns were a tough sell in 1990. The receipts tell a deceptive story. It grossed $21 million on a $20 million budget, but lost money after marketing. The aftershock saw the film relegated to the bargain bin of cable TV. At number 11, it's Rocky V. This was meant to be a grand homecoming for the franchise, bringing Rocky back to his roots. After being diagnosed with brain damage and losing his fortune to a crooked accountant, Rocky Balboa returns to his old Philadelphia neighborhood to train a promising but ungrateful young fighter named Tommy Gunn. The story culminates in a brutal street fight rather than a traditional boxing match. The movie vanished without a trace of the series' heart, alienating fans. The receipts tell a story of diminishing returns. While it grossed $119 million worldwide, it was viewed as a disaster compared to its predecessors. The aftershock was a 15-year deep freeze for the character. At number 12, it's The Russia House. This prestige spy thriller featured Sean Connery and Michelle Pfeiffer at their peak. Connery plays a rumpled British book publisher who is approached by a beautiful Russian woman to smuggle out a manuscript containing Soviet nuclear secrets. The film focuses on the growing love between the two leads as they are manipulated by both Western and Soviet intelligence agencies. But the film hit a dead end because its intellectual, slow-burn approach couldn't compete with the era's flashier hits. The receipts tell a frustrating story. On a $21.8 million budget, it failed to break even. The aftershock saw this drama become a dumping ground release on home video. At 13, it's The Two Jakes. Jack Nicholson returned to his most iconic role for this sequel to Chinatown. Set in post-war 1948 Los Angeles, Private Eye J.J. Gittes is hired to catch a man's wife in an affair, But the case turns into a murder investigation involving oil rights and the city's corrupt history. It attempts to explore how the sins of the past continue to haunt the developing suburbs of Southern California. But the film fizzled out after 6 years of production hell and lawsuits. The receipts are painful. On a budget of roughly $25 million, it only managed $10 million. The aftershock was the total cancellation of the planned trilogy. Finally, at number 14, it's Graffiti Bridge. Warner Brothers wanted to capture the lightning-in-a-bottle success of Purple Rain one more time. Prince reprises his role as the Kid, who is now competing with his rival Morris Day for control of a local nightclub called Glam Slam. The spiritual plot involves the Kid writing a song that will touch the soul of a mysterious, angel-like woman who frequents a bridge in their neighborhood. But the film fizzled out due to an incomprehensible script that felt more like a series of disjointed music videos. The receipts were a far cry from his previous heights. It grossed a disappointing $4.5 million. The aftershock was the end of Prince's career as a theatrical leading man. These 14 films prove that 1990 was a year defined by expensive misfires, where even the biggest legends, hottest comedians, and massive budgets couldn't guarantee success against production chaos or poor timing. From the legendary meltdown of the Bonfire of the Vanities to the neon-soaked disappointment of Graffiti Bridge, these projects remind us that every flop has a story, and sometimes the failure is more interesting than the film itself. Drop a comment if you actually saw any of these in theaters, or let us know in the comments which of these you actually remember watching. If you enjoyed this look at Hollywood's biggest disasters, don't forget to subscribe for more, because we have plenty more box office bombs and dumping ground classics coming your way soon.